from Sano's, and he has. I love his question because this is a question that we all suffer with. If you're in the business of serving people, and I'll let you tell that. I won't steal your thunder, but thank you, Duke.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Duke, and I do want to say thank you, Danielle, 1 Million Cup, and Brooke for all the coffee.
You're welcome.
So before I do want to begin, I want to share with you all a personal story of mine and a personal story with you all this morning. Last April, my wife and I, we introduced our first child, Faith, and I can swear to you that's one of the most happiest day next to my wedding, of course, of my life. And I can tell you, for some apparent reason, kids really make you just a giant, big sap somehow, right? But unfortunately, she was born with a pretty sizable hole in her heart. And at the age of 3 months, she had to undergo an open heart surgery. My family and I spent almost about 2 months spending at the time at the hospital. And it took about 2 months because due to complication of her recovery, we were there for a decent long time. But you have no idea, we were pretty excited to bring her back home finally. However, the aftermath was, because of our extended stay at the hospital, what we expected at home was the struggling and understanding of all those claims and bills that we received from that amount of Faith's different provider care. My wife was definitely struggling and trying to understand how to look at it and put all the pieces together. Luckily, I had a background in medical claims. I knew how to deal with that. But then I noticed that I saw an opportunity to enhance the medical claims, how medical claims are processed, and in return, improve healthcare, improve patient care. For this reason, I ventured out to start Sano Ecosystem, a technology startup company that provides smart claim servicing. So today I want to briefly discuss the issue that often overlooked in healthcare industry and how Sano can provide that solution. So first off is the problem. Despite the continued progress in adoption of a fully electronic health record system, patient eligibility and patient registration have been the leading cause for rejected and denied claims, and are an ongoing source of expensive cost and inefficiency. To put it in perspective, 2017, $3 trillion worth of claims were submitted, but 24 billion were initially denied for eligibility or missing patient information. And to put it in perspective, and what that means is for every claim that was denied for either correction and or appeal, it equals out to, for the provider to process that, roughly anywhere from $25 to $118. What is our solution? Well, enter Sano Ecosystem. My company's product is a smart claim system which utilizes blockchain secure technology to, 1, build a universal patient registration form, and 2, administer real-time eligibility for doctors and hospitals to bill their claims. Our solution will minimize the amount of machine errors and user errors that results in denied and reduced costs for providers. So in conclusion, Sano is solving a problem that continues to burden many medical providers today by streamlining the claims submission process. Doctors and specialists can focus more time and energy into what really matters, which is patients' well-being. Thank you. I want to just end with my challenge questions, which is my slide. If I was able to present it well enough, one thing I really did want to work on is how can I tell my stories where my customers who has no background of this, but still are able to understand.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Before we get started, a couple little ground rules for the question and answer section. Could I please ask everybody, if you have any questions that you want to ask or comments that you want to provide, please put your name, email, and phone number on the top of the card, so that way Doug has a chance to be able to reach back out to you. Also, if you don't like using the cards, there's this nifty thing that's on your phone that we just asked you to log into, where you can give feedback and he gets the same information. So if you don't want to write it down, you can put it through here, okay? When you ask a question, we ask that you please give us your name and the company you're with before you ask your question. And unlike the federal government and the way they ask questions, we ask that you be brief and to the point when you sit there and present your question, okay? So with that, someone over here, go ahead.
I was curious about the name. Is it derived because the insurance companies always say no to you?
That is actually going to be started from now on. It could be a story. Well, Sano is actually Latin for healthy.
Oh, okay.
Who are your customers?
My customer will be the doctors, providers, and hospitals.
Just a comment more than a question.
Yeah.
The term blockchain has a lot of ambiguity around it these days.
Correct. I
And
agree.
you use that term in your presentation, and I didn't necessarily see the relationship.
Correct. Okay. That's actually, I would love to chat more about that then. Thank you.
Can you talk about the process a little bit more? So you talked about a universal registration form. So who has to be involved in your process? Do doctors need to use that? What does that infrastructure in your mind right now look like?
The infrastructure right now, I would say we want to act as a clearinghouse, a relationship between the patient, doctor, and insurance company. So we'll be the gateway for those three entities.
So can you give an example of if you had Sano when you had your daughter, how would you have used the solution?
Yeah.
When would you have used it? How would the doctors use it? What would have happened differently?
When we first, if we was in that scenario, I would check in with Sano's application, send it to the hospital that we were at. That way they can get direct connection to the health insurance and have the right information on the front end, so there won't be any type of problem. Also limiting any type of registration in the front end, and for them to always continuously have that type of right information, and for them to build it continuously, because that's what I've been noticing is those little minor errors that happen in the beginning rather than during the process.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to because I'm moderating.
Okay.
With regards to telling your story,
Yes.
what is your background that gave you the impetus to create this in the first place?
Sure.
Because I didn't catch that in the beginning of the opening of your presentation.
Okay. Yeah. My background, I have a background with EDI or electronic data interchange, working alongside with for providers and clearinghouse. I also have a background with medical claims and as well as a software development.
Back here?
Can you give a little more background on the stages of your business? Do you have people working with you? How far along are you?
We're very early on. We do have a design of what I believe is a solution. We are working and testing to see if it's ideal. HIPAA is actually going to be one of the things that we need to overcome, make sure that's secure before we even start thinking about launching any type of product for a testing environment.
Derek?
Nothing spookier than the word universal. If that's the case, do you have any large healthcare enterprise organizations or insuring carrier types who are getting behind your efforts and trying to support what you're trying to do?
That is a great question, and we're still working on that to see, and working on to which providers or which type of healthcare will back us up within that range. And always open for any type of solution to work with.
That should be a real focus, because as a little guy in an immense field,
Yeah.
you'll get very little play. But if somebody with real creds gets behind you, then folks will come looking and try to figure out what you may have that's useful.
Yeah, I would love to hear any type of advice to gauge and who.
Robbie?
What's your pricing model?
Oh, we haven't come up with it yet.
Never come with it yet. Okay.
Mario?
Yeah, I'm kind of new at this, but the question that struck me was, how will you, if your customers are those big providers, right? How will you assure them that the privacy and all those other related informational requirements are met by the product?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, how can you assure your providers, your clients, that your product is secure? Because we often, so many times we hear about your privacy, your data, et cetera, right?
Right.
So how would you be telling your customers, my product is secure?
By giving that a secure product to you, and allowing you to open those doors or close it, or authorize who to use it or not.
Would you say you're complying with HIPAA requirements or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Jen?
Jen Dalton with Brand Mirror. What's your timeline? So it sounds like you're in the ideation stage. When are you trying to have a prototype by? What does that look like for you?
At the moment right now, the first prototype is going to be finished by the end of November. And that way we can gauge what type of features we need to add on. It's going to be just bare bone prototype. Luckily for us, all the personnel that I've been interviewing, they have been agreeing to work alongside us for at least a testing environment.
How many customers have you interviewed, or potential users have you interviewed today?
I interviewed five customers total. One from the health insurance, one from the provider, one from a larger behavioral health provider, and a couple of medical billers themselves. Small clinical offices, so a total of 5.
I think when it comes to telling your story, if you could have because I love your personal story, and I know medical claim billing is huge, and there are a lot of mistakes and errors. So I don't have a doubt that that's a pain point that needs solving. So I really liked how you started the presentation, but I would love to see a visual of the process you have in mind.
Okay.
And then I think if you're doing a pitch like this, including a timeline around, when are you trying to do your prototype by? When are you trying to launch? I think it's important to get at least 30, if not maybe even 100 interviews, and get people signed up and agreeing to do the prototype.
Okay.
So I think you're going in the right path, but I would definitely aggressively pursue a lot more interviews to understand what really would make it work, what would really get them to want to switch and use it. Because a lot of times people will try stuff, but as soon as you need them to sign up and actually commit,
Yeah.
that's a different story. So I think it's important to understand what they really need.
Thank you.
So one thing that I found, the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a video is worth 1,000 words. So along the lines of, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Jen.
What she said is, when you're talking to people, and even, having a video of yourself on there, describing a product, right? And getting testimonials from people that are signing up even on a trial basis and getting them to talk about the value. I found that when I steer people to my website for those type of things, it generates a lot of, I don't know what you want to call it, a lot of positive energy. Let's put it that way. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Natalie, quickly on track. I would go jump on Jen's bandwagon too, and I was expecting a picture of your daughter. And that would have made me dive right in and sink right into it.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that might fit in, how it might fit in, but your daughter in a hospital hooked up, going through all of that stuff, and you parents, everybody at some point in time has a nightmare with insurance.
Right.
So, it's familiar, right? And
Yeah.
it's just that empathy, so.
I mean, would you recommend, I would just wanna, I was gonna put a picture, I wasn't sure if it's during the hospital or it should be after.
Both.
Both,
Both,
before and
before and
after.
after.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, before when
And then-
she's,
And then you're claiming.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, when she's, you know, in and then, you know, now she's fine and healthy and we're all
Right.
happy for you.
yeah,
That's
yeah, I
the
can't keep
hook,
up
you
right
got
now.
everything,
I
you got
gotta
everything.
work out
Right.
just to keep up.
So, two-part
Yeah.
question. I'm a cybersecurity specialist. That's kind of what I do. But it was a very emotional presentation, and there's certainly a good subjective element to it. But I think if you're trying to raise capital with investors
Yeah.
or trying to get customers, it's very important to be a little more quantified in
Mhm.
your approach.
Yeah.
So specifically, two areas that I think you could achieve more metrics is competitive analysis to show who else is doing this, or are you trying to create a market, which is a much bigger uphill battle? And secondly, an opportunity analysis to where you're able to see, what is the growth rate in this area, what is the gap in the market, and how can you quantify that? It doesn't have to be exact, but it's important to lay out some of those metrics, and I think it'll be more compelling.
Okay, quantify what I'm saying. See
Yeah,
if it can grow.
and also on the sort of cybersecurity front, there is, somebody pointed it out earlier, there is a digital identity element to what you're doing, and while it may be HIPAA compliant, I think it's important to research that more.
Could you repeat that again?
Yeah,
Digital identity?
yeah, digital identity, because I assume what you're doing is you're using a ledger for EHR,
Mhm.
from what I could gather. So that's not just HIPAA. There's NYDFS, FISMA. You're getting into a different realm there.
I would love to chat with you more.
If you can give me 3 benefits of the product, can you give me just like what the most important 3 benefits?
Sure. The first benefit would be that there's going to be a reduced rejection and denial claims coming in and out. For as a patient wise, you don't have to make sure that that particular claim that you feel that you're paying is either right or wrong.
Okay, the second benefit?
The second benefit is for the provider.
Can you speak up a little?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Sorry.
a little louder.
Sorry. The second benefit would be reducing the overhead cost for the providers and the hospitals out there. They are using a lot of the outsourcing process and hiring a lot more medical billers, so we can at least provide a lower cost.
And the third one?
The third one is the ability to universally share patients' data.
So I think if you take those 3 benefits that are in your maybe you can put it together and create your message.
Okay.
It would be easier if you just tell me these 3 things.
Yeah.
If I'm a provider and I know those words, so I understand in less than a minute what is it about.
Gotcha. Was it unclear as I was going for what my message was?
Yeah, but I'm very sensitive, so
Yeah.
I thought that was great. But if you're talking with people who knows keywords,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would be easier just to go to the point.
Okay.
It's just a
No,
thought.
great advice. Thank you.
I'm gonna step in again with questions I have. Back to the story. The product is more of a transportability solution, or
Okay.
is it more of a procedural solution for the providers?
I haven't thought about that, to be honest.
Okay.
I would love to.
Because that's a critical component. I mean, I spent 18 years in medical billing, okay? And I know that, one of the biggest problems they've been trying to overcome is by going to electronic, is eliminating the problems from the physicians coding things wrong or not being able to have legible coding when the transcribers sit there and put the bills together.
Right.
But one of the things that there are a lot of apps that are out there, I can't remember, I think it's, I'll remember the name of the company now, is trying to have a transportability solution for the inside the insurance company itself, so that when you're with that particular, I think it's United Healthcare, has an app that you have on your phone, and wherever provider you go to, your information is there stored on the phone that they can just transcribe right over into that provider. Is yours along that same line where it's something that's the patient is retaining the information, taking it places, or is it something that the providers are actually utilizing on the back end and the billing side?
The first one.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So you want the patients to have the app with them wherever they go?
Correct.
Okay. That's my
Thank you.
question. That goes to part of the story.
Okay.
Include that in there.
Included.
Yeah, include that in there so that people know this is something that they carry with them. It's like their portable medical records
Mhm.
are with them. It may not be on the phone, but as you
Yeah.
said, through blockchain, it's allowing them to access that key file to go back to and access pull the medical records from whatever facility is stored in.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jen, and
Good.
then,
Good, go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna build upon kind of like what Jen said too. But also, if you have a good amount of people, like you tell your story yourself, but you'll probably also attract other people that have had similar experiences. So that could also be part of your story as well too. Is like not only did I have this issue, but so many other people, because I told my story, kind of built upon that. So you can kind of create a bigger issue that you're solving as well too. That is not just you, not just your daughter that went through it, but so many other people.
Understood. Thank you.
Jen?
Do you have a day job? Are you in this full time? You're in this full time? Okay.
Full time back in March.
Yay. So what I would also recommend is consider having an advisory board, or do you have an advisory board? Or a team that you're working with?
Here and there.
I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
would say it's not-
most of
not
us,
really.
if we have a team, it's cobbled together and they're doing it because they like us, right? When you're first starting. I think as part of your pitch, part of your story, you should also include your team, because this is a bigger, meatier issue. And so I think it's important to have people who, even if it's a flash board where it's just for 6 months or 3 months or through the end of the year through your prototype, and through a beta launch, I would try to have a group of people that you're meeting with every month that are in each of the spaces you're talking about, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's blockchain, whether it's a physician, a person who's gone through that and had the same challenge. But part of when I see a pitch presentation, it's to see who the team is, because I want to know if you're fully committed and who you've got on board. And because you're doing this full time, which is a really big deal, I would include that, right? And I would include that you're fully invested in this and that you're pounding the pavement, getting it up and running. And I think that was missing in the pitch. Not that you're not doing it, but I think that's an opportunity to share that as well.
To that point, it's critical when you're going for investors,
Yeah.
that they know
Yes.
who are behind you and what your brain trust is behind you that's supporting you. Because if you don't have something like that, then they're going to be viewing you like, oh, you're just another guy with an idea. But
Right.
if you have a serious group of people behind you, especially people who are very well credentialed,
Yeah.
that's just one step closer to getting that money.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really good question about, which side, is it more something that's an app that the patient, but I'm also wondering whether, maybe that's not necessarily the route or the model you want to do now, but I'm just thinking that, from a medical practice standpoint, so a doctor's office, right? Medical practice standpoint, if you can show value from that point, because they deal with volumes of patients, and like you said, so my ex-wife is an internist, right? So I got a lot of information. So, their big problem is coding. You're absolutely right. Not being able to code properly, and they it's errors, so it's costing them time. Okay, time is money. But if you can maybe show value to the medical practice, hey, your ROI is going to be this. Your patients are going to be happier. You're going to attract more patients because you use my product, right? Because they're getting more reimbursement, right, or more coverage.
Right.
To me, that seems like a larger volume solution than going after necessarily individual patients.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
And I agree with you.
Because somebody so your situation was very extreme, and I'm sorry for that.
That's okay.
But those are the people that are really going to seek you out, right? People like me that are relatively healthy, I may not seek you out, right? But that doesn't mean you don't have value to me, right? But if you go to a medical practice, you're covering everybody. You're not just covering the people that are coming in with brain tumors. You're covering people that are just coming in for checkups.
Agreed.
So,
100% agree with you.
Will and then Will. In the back.
Hi, I was just wondering, so at what point during your story do you think, in your personal story, would have you been sold your product? Would it be from the doctor when you go to the hospital, or from the insurance company, or even prior to that, before you knew you had any kind of medical issue? Like, when
I'm
would
sorry,
you get
could
sold
you
the
repeat
product?
that? I wasn't.
At what point in your journey do you think you would have been sold your product?
From what point in my journey will I sell the product?
Will someone sell the product to you? Be like, you need to get this when you go to the hospital to track your insurance claim.
And I think that will go back into it, whether I'm marketing into the patient side or the provider side. But we're still working on which type of, how we're going to market get into it, really. I mentioned before earlier that we're very early on stage of building the product and making sure the solution's ready before we even think about how we're going to even market the product for providers to buy, or if it's going to be more valuable for customers to buy. So we haven't thought about that yet, to be honest.
Daniel?
Just to add on to that, make sure that you have your end goal in mind.
Okay.
That'll shape everything that you do going forward, because you don't want to chase a bunch of different things. You want to have your end goal.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel.
And then Victor.
So, Dave Morrell, 4 Steps Ahead. I've been thinking about the pathway that your product has to follow in order to get where you want to go.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to think about who can say yes, who do you have to get to say yes, and who can help you get those decisions through. Because there are there's a lot more information I think to be had to start figure out, can you apply pressure through the creator of the group, i.e. the employers, in order to get that kind of critical mass going. Because ultimately, if somebody's fighting a claim, they're fighting it during the insurance company's hours, which is usually business hours.
Yeah.
So when you're building your story out relative to the financial impact, make sure that you've got a couple of different examples about all the people who are negatively affected by this, not only the users, not only the practitioners,
Yeah.
but also the people who are providing those services or selling those services, and see whether or not you've got additional leverage points along the way to get more people to yes, so that you can get the critical mass you need.
Thank you.
My wife works for a medical office, a pediatrician's office right around the corner.
Right on.
And she does a lot of the billing for that as well. And it's a small organization, and they got 2 locations, but she does so much billing, and it is a small entity that come summertime, it's at the end of summer, kids are getting out of school or getting ready to go to school, and they need their physicals, they need their tests, and well, my doctor is booked for a month and a half, but if I call up this little rinky-dink office, they can maybe fit me in. And a lot of patients try doing that, and they do allow it. The problem is if the client originally had their original doctor uses the app, will there be some sort of frustration as they come to the new doctor's office to get their physicals done and so forth without having the app? And well, all my information is on the app, why don't you guys have it? They're late adopters to technology, so they're just now recording all their information. So how would that work with the patient-client end with going to another doctor that doesn't use the app? Will there be an eventual frustration with that?
I would love to talk to you more about that, probably after the presentation. You probably know much more than I do how to figure that out.
Yeah.
There's a question over here. John, do you have a?
Yeah, it's more of a comment than a question.
Thank you.
So, seems like you're pretty early stage in the journey. Have you considered checking out some of the local accelerator in the area where they help early stage startups to focus on certain aspect of their development and get them prepared to stand in front of potential investors?
Yes, absolutely. I did a couple research on that and any type of program, just to gauge in how we can get involved in utilizing it together. Looked at a few other programs. This is the reason why I haven't chosen to a home stay yet, is because I want to make sure there's the person I was going to get connected to, working relationship out of it. It's going to be a long-term relationship. It's not thanks, see ya after a couple months kind of deal. I'm a very long-term relationship type of guy, and I want to keep as that, because who knows down the road we can actually help each other out. But at the moment right now, I am working with the Small Business Association. They've been mentoring me, helping me at least on the way of understanding who my target customers are, how to build this, what type of research I need to do, what type of, how to even address it in a way where regular folks can understand. And that's been my trouble point. That's why I linked up, at least with the SBA groups.
Donna?
So when you started out, you told us your story.
Yes.
And I would like you to find out how your story impacts the customer who you're going to be targeting with your site or with your app or whatever. But once you understand what problems it causes them and how you can solve that problem, then you can paint that picture for them. And we have this problem, where we want everything to be perfect. Well, let me tell you something, there is nothing perfect out there.
No way.
And even when you get a car, when you buy a car, it comes with a warranty because it's not perfect. So don't focus on it being perfect, focus on, getting it perfect for that point in time. Yesterday I downloaded my iPhone, the next software for my iPhone. But by the end of this year, it's going to have 12.2, 12.3, 12.4, and there's going to be problems that are going to happen that you're going to learn about along the way. And so make it perfect enough for consumption, and then you build on that. So it's going to be broken several times. But understand that it doesn't have to be perfect, but tell the story from their perspective as well. Okay. Start it off with your story, and then infect them with how it affects them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last question, and then I'll promise I'll keep my mouth shut for the rest of the time. The critical component in all this is the insurance company. The insurance company wants the accuracy. They want to save the money. As far as the consumer is concerned, they just want it to be done and taken care of, and so that their co-payment is as small as possible. Are you already working with or reaching out to any of the insurance companies to see if they'd be interested in backing you on this project?
Yes.
Okay.
I reached out to CMS and stuff. I'm working with Medicare and Medicaid and their platforms and see how we can utilize the state's.
Excuse me, please speak up. I want to hear that answer, and I couldn't.
Yes, I have reached out to CMS and see if we can actually utilize their platform and work together in terms of state Medicaid and nationally Medicare.
Okay. One last question. If anybody has one? Yes?
Actually, it's a comment. Dr. Bob Johnson, Vital 100 Wellness. A comment is that each of the groups who you're trying to appeal to has a different agenda. The customer, the office, the insurance company. I would say that in structuring your marketing, you should make sure the message is appealing to the group, each of those different groups. It's a different message. It's not one message. You've got a different message to the patient, a different message to the office provider, a different message to the insurance companies. And so in marketing to each one of those, you got to structure your message accordingly.
In terms of who am I talking to, or am I squeezing all in one presentation?
Well, as was mentioned before, your message to patients is to, let's simplify the process so we can minimize your co-payment. To the offices, let's save you time in processing these so you don't have to reprocess. To the insurance companies, there's a different message altogether.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you to say what that is, since you do have doctor in your name. To come up with those solutions or that message.
Well, if I was to be filing insurance claims, helping patients that I'd want to know save me time and reduce the amount of time that my employees would have to be there processing and reprocessing. So you would market to me different than you would market to one of my patients or clients.
Thank you, Dr. Bob.
Jen, I think you have one last comment.
There are a lot of medical billing certifications and training, and there's a lot of power in being able to figure out, first of all, if there is a standard, how can you piggyback on that? So if a practice leverages your tool, is that something they market, right? Because they want their customers or patients to know we are very focused on making sure there's not any billing errors, because that I think is a big benefit to patients if they know that the offices they go to or the hospitals they go to care about it, right? So I would also think about, are there places where you could reach out and talk to the medical billing certification programs about, is there a way to partner there? Is that something that would be beneficial? I don't think it would be counterintuitive, because you could partner in some way where you could at least learn from it. I don't know that they would, I don't know how what that looks like. But because there are standards, I just think that's something to look into and see if, if people do use your universal form or things like that, is that something where offices can market that and leverage that as a differentiator? But I don't know which practices or hospitals or where there's the biggest opportunity, which we heard earlier, is to quantify it. Right? So how do you quantify it, and where do you pick one place and try to see if you can drive change there? Because it is a big system. So changing all of it will probably be pretty hard. But what's the easiest place where you can get the most leverage quickly and have your proof of concept be valuable?
Registration form-wise, there is no standard for registration form. It's just basically a contract document.
Can you speak up so we can make sure we can hear you?
For registration form-wise, there is no standard. It's basically a contract that's stating that a release of your PHI or personal health records information for doctors and providers to use to get access from the insurance company. The only standard that I know of is electronic data interchange, the method of how claims are being sent to the insurance for billing. At the moment right now, I have reached out to the X12 organization who does the standardizing format for EDI. And we're right now aggressively pursuing membership with them and seeing how what we can do in terms of getting involved. I just emailed them last week, and quickly I got an email from the CEO, and we're trying to figure out a way to link up and utilize it.
Thank you very much. Sano, you have our last thought for the day.
What can our 1 Million Cups community, how can we assist you? What do you want us to help you with? How can we help you?
Let me come back through this again, and I would love to see where I grew from now to the next time I was able to present. Was I able to connect and answer the question that you guys all had, all the feedbacks that I was able to put in there. In terms of did I address it well? Did I market into that type of organization that I was targeting? Did I add pictures? Did I add the videos? Did it make sense? So what 1 Million Cup I would love to see happening is, please let me do this again and see if I grew from there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If you took your cards, please pass it down to the end of the table so that we can go ahead and pick them up. Jen will go ahead and grab them for you.
So,
thank you.
Duke, we want to thank you for sharing your story with us. I know this wasn't easy, especially in the beginning stages, and you're creating this, especially for emotional reasons, and it's a solution. So thank you very much, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to answer your question, yes, you have to come back. We're going to give you an opportunity to come back and tell your story, and you can tell us exactly what feedback you used and how you're moving forward with it.
Okay.
So again, let's give Duke a round of applause. Speaking of feedback, he must have known that I was going to go there. Speaking of feedback, so a couple months back, we had a gentleman come out and tell his story, and that gentleman is Gresham. And Gresham has a podcast called I Am CEO, where he put out his issue, opportunity, or challenge, and now he's back to give us an update. So Gresham, please come forward and tell us how you have progressed.
Yes. Well, you already been mentioning, I have a digital marketing company called Blue 16 Media, so I focus on website design and SEO. Since I started, it's been 5 years. I've been running around a lot, doing a lot of networking and a lot of different groups and organizations, but I've always had a blog, so speaking of stories, I've always been super passionate about entrepreneurship stories and finding out why people started their businesses. So I took a step back, and over the years I've been doing this blog and interviewing entrepreneurs and business owners, getting traffic on it, but trying to figure out exactly how I can potentially be a lot more effective and efficient with everything that I'm doing. So I came here, I want to say it was end of July, maybe end of June, maybe beginning of July, and I talked about a new podcast that I was launching called I Am CEO Podcast. So right now, as far as progress, I'm close to episode 70. Now granted, I had some before I actually sat down, but I've been rocking and rolling. I have it down to a science. It's around a 10 or 15 minute interview where I interview entrepreneurs and business owners, find out why they started their businesses, but also get an idea of kind of things they do behind the scenes to be kind of effective and efficient. So as far as questions that I asked, my challenge questions, I asked, what are your thoughts on the process and business model around the podcast? And are there any ways that I can continue to be more efficient? So I got some feedback based off of that. And then I also looked for ideas on future things that I can implement to be even more effective and efficient with what it is that I was doing. So my top 3 kind of things that I took away from being able to present here are, I adjusted the majority of the podcast. So initially, for my digital marketing company, I like to focus on what I call healthy CEOs. So those are entrepreneurs in the health, sports, fitness, and wellness industry. So because I was using it as a way to network and engage, potentially prospect, I wanted to basically focus on that industry as well too. But I forgot who it was, but they had a comment about maybe not potentially pigeonholing myself to that specific industry in the beginning. So I was geared up on doing 75% of the interviews. I took that a step back and did about 51%. So still a majority focused on that. And it's been a good way for me to kind of break through the noise, because a lot of people have podcasts, but if I say, hey, this season's focused on this specific industry, it's been a good way for me to kind of connect with people. So I took a step back from that, and I think I've been able to do more podcasts, but largely I haven't pigeonholed myself into being just specifically that. I also looked into other ways to kind of monetize the podcast. Like I mentioned, my primary goal was really to be more efficient, to do it as a networking opportunity, but also as a way to potentially get more clients and prospects. But I also looked into other ways. I've had a blog for longer than I've had my business, where I interview the entrepreneurs and business owners. But I looked into kind of doing affiliate links, which are basically, because during the podcast I'll talk to people and they'll mention certain apps, or Audible is one that comes up consistently as something that they use to be effective and efficient. So I've already had an affiliate link with Audible, so I've just done little things like that, add that into the show notes so that when somebody mentions it during the episode and they want to actually just take action right there, rather than them going and typing in Audible, they can just click down and do that. So again, just another way of thinking of another way to kind of drive home more revenue. And then the last thing I did was someone mentioned that rather than me, so what I was doing is going through Instagram, going through all my blogs, going through all my contacts and stuff, and trying to figure out who I want to reach out to. And I had the system kind of automated from there, but I still would do a lot of that stuff. So one of the comments was, rather than me doing all of that myself, is to have somebody like a VA, which I have, to actually help out with a lot of that, automating, finding the ideal people that might want to be guests on the podcast to set up that intro call. So that's another big thing that I did as well too. And like I said, things have been going well. I have had closed business from the actual podcast, which is definitely good. And then, like I said, I have 70 episodes, and it's been a good way to kind of network in a different type of way. So that's it. It's called the I Am CEO podcast, by the way. It's on everything, so subscribe, please.
Any questions for him? Any questions?
Yes.
How much time has it saved you? It's like implementing the win, so it's closed business for you.
Yeah, I haven't scaled back as much. So what my goal was, by the end of the year, looking into 2019, I would have it down to a science to where I would be able to get off all these boards that I'm on and all these other things. So I see it where it is, providing those opportunities for me to release some of those things. So not yet, but it's in the works. I'm still kind of not sleeping as much.
So, so Preston and I have actually known each other for, what, like a year at least?
Yeah.
Probably a little longer than that. And just as a testimonial for progression, if you have not connected with him, he's a great networker. He's a very committed business owner. He and I have exchanged business before, so definitely a worthwhile connection.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Make sure you get that on video.
Say that one more time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you.